Hey everyone, and welcome back to Maximalist Workshop. There have been a few developments with respect to the Sovol SV08 nozzle issue, so I wanted to give you all an update. As a quick recap, the original nozzles that shipped with the Sovol SV08 machines before this month were press fit into the hot ends, and printing with PETG would cause some of the nozzles to become unpress fit to catastrophic effect. In some cases, both the hot ends and the print beds needed to be replaced completely. Although they're listed on Sovol's website, these parts are fairly scarce, and it can take weeks or months to get a replacement, which means a lot of unplanned downtime. Based on an email exchange with Sovol, I understood that they would be implementing a new design which would involve a top screw that would help retain the nozzle in the hot end. For a full breakdown and background on these issues, my previous videos are linked in the description. A couple of days after the most recent one of these videos, Sovol released this statement in which they publicly acknowledged the situation. Huge kudos to Sovol for that. They said that although it's a small number of total orders, customers who have already encountered problems, we will reissue the hot end for free. And if the build plate gets scratched, we will also reissue the build plate for free. And this to me is fine. It doesn't really make whole anyone who is using a third party or other upgraded build plate, and it suggests that we need to risk using our printers as they are, and actually having the printers damage themselves before we can get replacements, but at least it's something. Especially if there really are only a few hot ends doing this, it's probably the best option when comparing cost to benefits. That said, this again diminishes the value of the printer for me a lot because I need to be able to print without having to stare at the machine all day. A few days later, on June 27th, Sovol posted again saying that based on the latest feedback from the group and community, the reissued hot end for customers who encounter PETG printing issues will ship before July 1st. Overall, they wanted more time to make sure that the quality would be on point. Quality checks are great. I love quality checks. A little extra time is fine with me as long as we all end up with a hot end that we can count on. After that, though, we haven't heard anything publicly from Sovol that I'm aware of. However, people started receiving hot ends that looked a bit different from the ones that originally shipped with the machine. Some speculated that these bronze design hot ends, which had been featured on Sovol's website previously, were the new designs Sovol said that they had in the works, especially since many of us started to receive them after July 1. Two sets that I had ordered were delayed for weeks and ultimately arrived in mid-July. As a side note, these came with instructions for changes to the printer's config file, which is helpful for beginners, but Sovol, please put this information in the wiki and link it on the product page for the replacement nozzles. I had assumed Sovol must have been holding off on sending these hot ends until the new design could be vetted and Sovol could send them out. In fact, if you go to Sovol's website right now, these are the only hot ends listed and available for purchase. However, as you can see, these do not have a grub screw. When I reached out to Sovol to get clarification several times, they did not confirm whether this was the right design, but instead they just sent me tracking information for a new hot end. They did not answer whether they would be replacing all 8 hot ends I had received, or if it was just one, so I'm waiting to find out. As of the writing of this video, which is 3 days later, the tracking info says that the package has not been sent, and I never received shipping information for the replacement for the hot end that initially failed, starting this whole video series. In the meantime, they did respond to somebody else, indicating that the new design does in fact include a grub screw, and at least one person has received the new design, which suggests that it does exist. I really like the Sovol SV08, as I've said many times on this channel before. But as long as I'm confused about what Sovol's selling and what buyers will receive, it's really hard for me to want to recommend it. In the meantime, for anybody who does not have the fixed hot end, don't fret. Like I said before, the issue is rare, but it only seems to be happening with PETG. Does look like there are some components to this issue which are related to the heat required for printing PETG, the difference in accelerations between the Comgro T300, for which these hot ends were originally designed, and the SV08, and potential issues with the manufacturing of certain batches of hot ends that would not have affected later batches, especially the bronze design ones. But there's at least one thing you can do to prevent the nozzle from failing if you have the original and want to print with PETG. As some have already pointed out, the max volumetric speed for PLA on the standard SV08 profile is 10 cubic millimeters per second, but the standard PETG profile is set to 17 cubic millimeters per second, which is almost double the flow rate. My experience with other machines suggests that PETG is often printed at the same speed or slower than PLA though, and I've had good luck with what some have suggested, which is slowing the max volumetric speed for PETG down to 8 cubic millimeters per second. It's been working on my spare of the original hot end, and I haven't had any failures so far. Some have suggested that values as high as 14 cubic millimeters per second can be effective at mitigating this issue, but more testing will be necessary to confirm exactly how high it can go. That said, changing this setting slows the machine considerably, and the printer is advertised with a max flow rate of 30 cubic millimeters, so it should be able to handle 30 cubic millimeters with at least some material. The standard profile for ABS has the printer running at 21 cubic millimeters per second, and I haven't had any issues so far. On balance, this still seems like a mechanical defect to me, whether design or manufacturing, and not really a slicing issue. One other thing you can do in the short term to address this issue is to replace the hot end completely with a third-party design. Nadir, who has created a lot of great models for the SV08 that I plan to build and test in the coming months, has published an improved adapter for Bamboo Lab style hot ends. You can find his work on Printables at the link below. Then, as I mentioned in my last video, Jonathan Levi has designed a heatsink which will allow you to use a Revo hot end and quick change nozzle on the SV08 with few other changes. I got one of these customized for Maximalist Workshop, so we'll be testing that here as well. This too is linked in the description. I'm looking forward to keeping you all updated as I get new information on the official SV08 fixed hot end, test the bronze style hot ends to see how they compare with the original stock, and continue on my various adventures with the Sovol SV08. If you like this video, please leave a like below because it helps us in the algorithm. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. If you have any feedback, we love to hear it, whether constructive or complimentary. Leave it in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks everyone. This has been Maximalist Workshop.